And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of the Morphinominal Hockey Show, playoff edition. This time not preview, but actual playoff edition. I am joined from hockeyhotstove.com, Mike Augello. Mike, welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show. And I also greatly apologize if I just butchered your last name.
No, believe me, that's closer than most people get. It's a Jello, but it doesn't really matter. I had somebody back in college. They finally got my when I was registering for school. They finally got my name right after 5 years. I walked up to them and shook their hand and said, "Congratulations, you're the first person in 5 years that got my name right." And then I found out that she lived next door to a cousin of mine, so she knew that's how she knew the last name was pronounced right. So
Oh, well,
big
that,
deal.
that that's one way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, wearing the Oilers in honor of Toro, who can't be on the show this week. Toro obviously is a well-known Edmonton Oilers fan. But we're going to do a big meat and potatoes with Mike about the Buffalo Boston series. Plus, we're going to cover quickly three other series. And then later in the show, we're going to have Bill Meltzer on to talk Flyers, Penguins, and the other three series.
I
So
don't
with
know that
that,
guy.
I don't know what you're talking about. Who is this guy? Um, so, so hopping right into it, we have the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins, which has been an exciting first round series so far. Buffalo's up 2-1 in the series. Big win last night in Boston. Um, so far, what are you thinking of the series for the Sabres so far?
Well, it's been a series of turning points because if you looked at game one, Boston was up 2-0 in the third period, less than 10 minutes to go, and they sort of fell into a defensive shell. And then Tage Thompson scores 2 goals, I think in 3 minutes, and the lead evaporates, and Buffalo just has this incredible 4 goals. I think it was like 6.5 minutes or 6:46. So they win the first game 4-2, and everybody in Buffalo, it was the loudest that the building had been in years, and I've been covering the team for 3 years, and I've been living in Buffalo my entire life. So that was a very loud building. Game two, the anticipation was that they would just keep rolling. Well, Boston had other things in mind, and with a 1-0 lead in the second period, Morgan Geekie dumps it into the offensive zone. And as my buddy Russ Cohen said, obviously Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen never played shortstop or played baseball or little league or whatever because he didn't understand the concept of a short hop because he let that puck get by him, and that's an inexcusable goal. I mean, you cannot allow that in a playoff game. Now, I will blame Lindy Ruff on this one because Lindy Ruff, after they're down 3-0, going into the third period, people in the press box, we were talking about it and said, maybe they're going to go to Lyon. Maybe they just, wake up the team, whatever. He doesn't. Luukkonen comes out in the third period, and I think it was Arvidsson scores 16 seconds into the third period, and then they pull Luukkonen. If you had any chance at a comeback, you should have played Lyon at that because they lost that game 4-2. And the first game was 4-3. This one was 4-2. So had they not allowed that goal, maybe they would have climbed back. But Boston dictated the play and the style of play in those first two games. And in one game, Buffalo, they played 8 good minutes in that game, and they did not play a really good game in game two. Game three, the turning point was the penalty shot. Middle of the second period, Boston's leading 1-0. Rasmus Dahlin has the misfortune of snapping his twig in his zone, passing the puck, goes right to Arvidsson, and he trips him, and it's a penalty shot. And Alex Lyon stops Arvidsson. A couple minutes later, Bowen Byram scores to make it 1-1. And then momentum, I think Buffalo had the momentum for the rest of that game, especially in the third period. Alex Tuck scores the game winner. And Boston had two power plays in the last 10 minutes of the third and could not get a good scoring chance on Lyon. So right now it's sort of a nip and tuck battle. Right now, advantage Buffalo. But if anybody thinks that Boston's going away or won't try to dictate the play in game four, they're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the Sabres. I was listening to 32 Thoughts, the Friday episode, and one thing that Elliot Friedman has kind of said about Alex Lyon is that he's kind of like the savior option for he did it in Florida with the Panthers when Sergei Bobrovsky was struggling, and
Hmm.
then now with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he had a clunker of a game too. So Lyon comes in, and obviously there wasn't much you can do about game two, but comes into game three and plays a bit of that savior role.
Right.
Um, how would you? I mean, outside, yeah, that giving up that bouncer, you know, pretty much hurt Luukkonen's confidence. What can be done? Obviously you're going to go with Lyon going into game four, but what does Luukkonen have to do to rebuild that confidence, in case, there's a moment where maybe Lyon has to come out of the game?
Well, I mean, people don't recognize the fact that that was Luukkonen's first two playoff games ever. He may have played Calder Cup playoff games with the Amherst. I know he played and won a World Junior with Finland and was very good in the OHL, but it's different in the NHL, and those were his first two games. And he wasn't particularly great in game one. He was okay. I mean, he stopped Pasternak on a couple breakaways that kept them within range, and then they ended up winning the game. But game two, he was abysmal. Um, the problem is Alex Lyon is not a starter. He's a 1B. And I agree with Elliot Friedman's assessment that, he's the sort of savior option, which for most of the year he had been, but he'd been injured a couple times, especially late in the year. He had a lower body injury in New York when he was supposed to start, and Colton Ellis started the last couple, starts he would have started the last week or two of the regular season. Um, Now he played really well yesterday, and um, I mean, I think he probably they'll go with him until he loses the game, and then they could go back to Luukkonen. But remember, back to that the Florida situation, they went to him like the last 3 weeks of the regular season when Bobrovsky was not playing well, and then they started him the first four games against Boston, and they were down 3-1, and then they went back to Bobrovsky. So yeah, he can be your savior in drips and drabs in a short stint, sort of like the backup in Edmonton was for Stuart Skinner last year.
Connor
But
Ingram.
Connor, no, 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 not
Not
Connor
not
Ingram, the former Leaf backup. I can't think of his name right now.
oh,
But yeah, and people watching will say, Mike, you're a dummy. You can't remember the guys. Calvin Pickard. Thank you.
yeah,
There you
there you
go.
go.
There we go. I came finally. But you can't go with Calvin Pickard to win a Stanley Cup. You just can't. You need your number one goaltender. And they eventually went back to Skinner. And with Buffalo, yeah, you can win a game or two with Alex Lyon, but I don't know whether you can win a series or go deep in the playoffs with Alex Lyon. So eventually they're going to have to go back to Luukkonen. And if they don't, then they're either winning the series. And I mean, I just think Lyon either will break down or he'll have a bad game. And Lindy is not married to either goaltender. He basically had a tandem all year. So I think Luukkonen can get back in the net eventually.
So with that said, obviously with the Sabres up 2-1, um, first off, that win at game one, completely electric as you're mentioning. And I have
Mhm.
to say this, the day the Sabres clinched their playoff spot was the day they played the Capitals in DC. And we had so many Sabres fans in the arena. Even though they lost, they didn't care. They were there to have a good time. Um, how infectious is that attitude that the fan base is having on the team?
I think they feel it. I mean, the 14-year playoff drought was an albatross around this team's neck. It really, I mean, it just it hung over them. Once it became clear that they were going to break that this year and then win the division, it was close They, getting home ice advantage a or the top spot in the Atlantic Division didn't get clinched until the final couple games of the season. But I mean, everybody has sort of been in sort of a euphoric state for about 4 months. Remember, December the 9th, this team was last place in the Eastern Conference. And then they won they at an almost 800% clip, which is unheard of. And I've said this in many of my columns because I cover the Sabres for Hockey News as well as do my responsibilities with Hockey Hot Stove. My assertion with Sabres has been, are they good or are they hot? And the response I get from some people is, well, they've been like this for 50 games. I don't care. I mean, they haven't proven anything. If they beat the Bruins, then I'd have to say that it swings to they're actually good. But right now, I mean, after game two, I would have said, okay, this is the challenge that they face. They're facing a team with a lot more experience, with a better goaltender in Jeremy Swayman. And if they can get by Boston, then their next challenge is to get by the winner of Tampa Bay and Montreal, and that'll be a even tougher task. They have problems against Montreal and Tampa. Well, let's just say I'm glad I have a seat in the press box for that series because I'll be eating popcorn and watching fights because it's going to be psycho. It's going to be great if they play. But they can't overlook, and Lindy Ruff has said this in his availabilities after the games. We have to basically flush the result of the previous game. We cannot say, great, we won game one. Now we're going to win. And no, and I don't think they did that. In game two, I thought that they didn't play very well. I think they expected to win, but you don't expect to win anything. You just go out and work your ass off. And if you do that, you have a better chance to win. In game three, I think they took that sort of one game approach and they played a much better overall game. And I think they also did that because they were without Josh Norris, who when once he went down with an injury, I said the chances of them winning this series went down significantly because the return of Josh Norris from an injury was in early December, right around the time they started their win streak. Having him as a number two center behind Tage Thompson, that two-line attack is really important for the Sabres and their success.
Yeah. So with that, what are two things in your opinion that the Sabres need to do better? And then what is one thing on top of that that they need to continue doing for success against the Bruins?
Doing better is the power play. The power play has been atrocious. I mean, they're 0 for 14 in this series. If they had scored 2 goals, they'd probably be up 3-0 in the series. But they're horrendous on the PP, and it's inexplicable because they do have great talent. You've got Tage Thompson with one of the best shots in the league, one of the best one-timers in the league. You've got a really good offensive defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin quarterbacking the top power play. Bowen Byram is their second guy on the second power play, and then you have Alex Tuck and Jason Zucker. They have the ingredients for a great power play. It's just the cake falls flat every time. And really, I mean, the only reason Boston is in this series is because the Sabres power play can't take advantage of some Boston penalties.
Yeah.
And in terms of what they're doing right, um, well, I mean, I think in game three they ignored Boston's usual Boston mentality. I mean, they were really letting Marco Sturm at the beginning of the series said, "Well, we're bigger and stronger, and that's the way we're going to play." And I thought the first 2 games of the series that sort of got into the psyche of the Sabres. Are like, okay, we're going to prove we're just as big and just as strong as you guys. And then you basically played into the Bruins. That's what they wanted. They want to play that big boy hockey because they think they'll win at it. The Sabres are a much quicker team. They're a better offensive team. They have a more mobile defense, and they rely on guys like Byram and Dahlin and Owen Power to lug the puck up the offensive zone. And Boston is playing that defensive shut down the middle type of game. And if they play that game, they have a chance to win. If they let Buffalo freewheel, they don't have a chance.
All right. So with that, that's Buffalo Boston. We're going to touch base quickly on three other series.
Okay.
First one's going to be Tampa Bay Montreal because obviously the winner of that series will take on the winner of the Buffalo Boston series. Game three is being played tonight
Mhm.
on Friday, which is when we're recording. What are your thoughts on that series? Because that's been a series of some fireworks.
A lot of fireworks. There, I think Tampa is successfully getting Montreal to play their game. Remember, Tampa has got a lot more playoff experience than Montreal. Montreal has great top end talent with Suzuki and Caulfield and Slavkovsky, who almost single-handedly won game one for them, and Lane Hudson. But I think Tampa is a deeper team. They're a more experienced team. If they get the goaltending from Vasilevsky that they got in game two, I picked Tampa to win that series in 6 games, but it's not going to be easy because, Montreal is very quick and very skilled. And if their power play is working and they score some goals and they put Tampa on the defensive, then, it's going to be tougher for them. But, Tampa's got a lot of guys who have played dozens of playoff games, the Sorellis and the Points and the Kucherovs. Hedman seems to be close to getting back, and if he gets back in the lineup, that's one more guy with Stanley Cup pedigree. So I think it's going to be exciting, and the games in the Bell Center are always exciting. I expect Tampa to win that series, but can I guarantee it? No.
Yeah, last week when we did our playoff preview, I think I was the only one in the group to pick Montreal to beat Tampa Bay. But
Hmm.
that's just simply because I'm sick and tired of a Florida team in the Cup final, and I want that change this year. So,
I get it.
next up, we're going to move out west. We got Colorado Avalanche versus the LA Kings. Colorado is up 3-0. It's kind of ironic. The games in Colorado, Colorado wins both games 2-1, moves the series to LA. The score gets doubled. The Avalanche went 4-2.
Mhm.
Um, did we truly expect to see Colorado potentially, and who knows what happens by the end of this weekend, sweep the Los Angeles Kings? Or were we expecting something that was going to be a bit more competitive?
I gave LA a game when I was predicting this series. I mean, I not that, they have some talent and they have some guys who are Hall of Famers like Kopitar and Doughty, but they're going at least early on they've been going with Anton Forsberg in goal, and I don't know whether it's Kemper being injured or they're going with Anton Forsberg because he's been the better goalie down the stretch, but I don't think he's a particularly great goaltender. Colorado right now, they're going with Wedgwood, and they're just a better team. But you never predict a sweep. You always think that a team will win one game, but we could see three of them in the playoffs right now. I mean, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Carolina is probably going to sweep Ottawa because Ottawa is significantly injured on the blue line. And in this series, I just think Colorado is the more talented and deeper of the two teams. And if you look, guys like McKinnon and Martin Necas haven't even gotten going yet. It's like, they're getting scoring from all throughout the lineup. And I mean, LA just doesn't have a lot of offense. I'm frankly surprised they got into the playoffs, but it's going to be a pretty quick exit for them.
And then talking from a quick exit to a an exciting series out west, we have
Hmm.
the Edmonton Oilers and the Anaheim Ducks. That series is changing over to Anaheim. I believe they
Hmm.
play tonight. Yep,
Yes.
they play tonight. Uh, Connor McDavid being held off the score sheet completely in game two. Anaheim has played much higher to expectations than a lot of people put on the Ducks against the Oilers. What are your thoughts on this series as it's tied at one game apiece?
Well, I picked Anaheim to upset Edmonton partially because I'm not the biggest fan of the Edmonton Oilers going back to the 80s. I'm sick of them winning and being in cups.
Proceeds to take off
Um,
jersey and hide
yeah, yeah, there you go.
it.
But no, I can separate my emotional despising of them to analyzing the series, and I just think, I mean, they're both terrible defensively. They both have questions in goal, but for different reasons. Obviously, Dostal is, this is his first playoffs. And but they didn't, Edmonton, they had to go away from Tristan Jarry because he was a sieve, and now they're going with Connor Ingram, and he's a little better, but not much. But the swaying factor in this series is, McDavid is now injured apparently, and Draisaitl came off an injury. And we know that they're superb, and we know that they can, even at 80%, can still make a difference in a series. But they had the advantage of playing LA in the first round the last 4 years, a team that couldn't score, that was relying on defense. This team can score. And Anaheim was leading game one, 3-2 after two periods, and blew the lead in the third period. And Draisaitl was scored, but McDavid doesn't have a point in the first two games. And game two, they were up 4-2. Edmonton came back, tied the game, and then Anaheim scored late and scored two goals. So Anaheim can score with them. They have some veteran players. Their defense is young and their goaltender is inexperienced. But the flaws of the Oilers, I think, have been apparent all year. They're not a well-constructed team, but they have two of the best players in the NHL, so you never overlook that. But I think Anaheim's going to win this series, but but Edmonton, if McDavid gets back to being McDavid and Draisaitl keeps playing the way he is, then it could be an Oilers win.
Well, the Capitals fans out here will be happy to hear that you're saying Anaheim because of John Carlson.
Yeah,
So,
it would be a nice story. It'd be even nicer if he decides to re-sign with the Capitals if they want him at the end of in the summer. But I don't know whether that's the plan or not.
well, being how the news that we've heard about Rasmus Sandin and how he's going to be out between 6 to 9 months, which could potentially bring him back in February due
Yeah.
to surgery to repair an ACL. Who knows? That definitely changes the offseason plans for the Capitals in that regard.
That's a shame. I like Rasmus. I don't know him personally, but he was a Leaf first round pick and a good player. And they ended up trading him for a first round pick that turned out to be Easton Cowan, which I think he's going to be a very good Leaf. So, but I root for Rasmus Sandin, and I hope he comes back from that injury.
Yeah. Right now, the earliest he could potentially be back is some point of November. Latter part would be some point in February.
Okay.
So, if my math is correct, when they made the announcement earlier this week. So, with that, last question for you, actually, technically, second to last question for you.
Mhm.
What do you have any bold predictions for the remainder of this first round?
Well, the only other upset I had, and I don't think many people picked this one, I picked Utah over Vegas. I think Utah, if they get good goaltending from Vejmelka, I mean, it's 1-1 right now. So, Utah now has home ice advantage. I think they're immensely talented. They added Mackenzie Weegar at the deadline, so that helped their defense. And, Gunther and Cooley and all the, Schmaltz and all the forwards they have and Paterka. I mean, I like their youth and speed and offensive firepower up front. But Vegas, I mean, you can't argue with, Eichel is got a lot of experience. Mark Stone, they never recovered from Alex Petrangelo's departure because of injury. The mistake was to sign Mitch Marner instead of going out and finding a defenseman. No, they added Rasmus Anderson, but Rasmus Anderson has not played very well for them. And they've had to fire Bruce Cassidy and go and hire John Tortorella as sort of a home run throw. So I think the things are there for Utah to potentially beat Vegas, and I think it could happen.
All right. Well, that's a very good bold prediction right there. So with that, Mike, where can everyone find you on social media and your work?
I'm at Mike in Buffalo on X and Instagram. Obviously, at Hockey Hot Stove, myself and Bill Meltzer are the co-managing editors. I am the Toronto Maple Leafs columnist for Hockey Hot Stove, and also I am the Buffalo Sabres columnist at and editor at the Hockey News.
All right. So with that, we'll be back after this quick break as we'll be joined by Bill Meltzer. The More Phenomenal Hockey Show is brought to you by Oats Overnight. When we're on the go but still need breakfast, Oats Overnight is the healthy on the go breakfast choice for the show and TXHT Hockey. Use our exclusive link in the description on both txhthockey.com and in the YouTube show description to get a $20 discount on Oats Overnight today. Hey, everybody, I know what you're thinking. I'm not with Bill Meltzer. And the reason for that is because, unfortunately, this part of the show is not converting for me right now. I'm having issues with Zoom. It's not convert. It just will not convert. So I'm going to continue to work on trying to get the segment with Bill, and then once I do, I'll be releasing it separately if I'm able to recover it. I do apologize for the inconvenience. I'm unable to get Bill to re-record the second half of the show. He is a very busy guy, and I do value the fact that he did spend the time that he did with me, and I'm not going to ask him to come back on, re-record, and all this other stuff. So I do apologize, but I will work on trying to get it converted so I can release it separately at a later time, hopefully some point this weekend. But if not, at least we had the opening half of the show with Mike Augello talking about the Sabres and the Bruins and much more. And yeah, so hopefully stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get that segment with Bill out. If not, we will be finding out in the coming days of who will be recording next week for next week's episode. So hopefully we'll have some better luck next week in that regards. Unfortunately, this is something on Zoom's end, not on my end. Zoom is the one that's having the issues. So, with that said, thank you for tuning in to the More Phenomenal Hockey Show. Make sure you go to hockeyhotstove.com. Support Bill, support Mike, support everyone who does the work on that website. And of course, you can follow me at the Lindenbaum 75 and um, at TXHT underscore hockey. And of course, go to txhthockey.com. Thanks again, and I do apologize for not having Bill on like originally planned. We did record. It's just we're having technical issues trying to get that half of the show converted, and I am going to continue the fight to get it converted until I can no longer get it converted, unfortunately. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the ice.